Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, this morning, we are going to continue and spend a little while on human trafficking. And I think that, unfortunately, I have to speak about human trafficking as it relates to Jamaica. And, recently we learned about a plane that landed in Jamaica last week, and some news sources suggest that the plane was unauthorized, while some suggested that it was authorized, that the government of Jamaica knew about it, but there were two persons that were not declared on the passenger manifest. As a result of that, the government had to intervene, right? The immigration officers, authorities in Jamaica had to intervene to examine what was happening. Seems to be a mystery. I don't think that people still have yet come to understand. I don't think we have gotten a full grasp of what really took place, but we understand that the media houses present narratives, and we can't deny or we can't refute because we do not have the evidence of what really took place. The evidence is in their hands. Only they really can tell us the true story. And lots of rumors, yes, and allegations, and people are going to be posting lots of videos suggesting that they heard or they saw. But remember now that we have to be careful what we disperse, right, to our viewing audiences. I am trying as best as I can not to be spreading propaganda, because that is what I understand. It's a business. YouTube is a business, and many people are just here um, to undertake a particular business and to get money and move on. But that is not what I'm about. I'm about education and educating the audience so that you can be empowered, all right? Because that is what we lack in the world. Many people are not empowered because they do not have the light that God would like to disseminate, the light that emanates from his word, right? Many of us lack that. As a result of that, we do not have what it takes to analyze the situation. Now, Jamaica is in a precarious situation because for years we have been a lawless society. The society has not really enforced its laws, right? Most of its laws do not have any teeth. We are a society that is unraveling, and many of our politicians would like to give us the impression that they are, bringing us into the land of milk and honey, where economic prosperity will be the order of the day. But like Martin Henry, who is now deceased and was a very enlightened and prudent man, he always said, and he gave this, what should I say now? Um, it's not a recommendation, right? But his counsel's better word. His counsel to, or his major counsel to Andrew Holness when he became prime minister in 2016 was that he should create a society of law and order, right? He wanted the Andrew Holness led administration to create a society of law and order. Until then, economic prosperity will never elude us, right? Until then, economic prosperity will elude us until we are able to, to have an orderly society, a society that insists, that demands that it needs to have law and order. We love this licentious behavior and to do whatever we want to do. That is what Jamaica is, and that is what Jamaicans consider to be freedom. To live in a society that's noisy, in which garbage is strewn all over the streets, and we do whatever we please, right? That is what is freedom to many Jamaicans. And right now, the chickens are coming home to roost. And we're seeing, because of the lack of law and order, we're seeing an uptick, which we will not be able to put down because we are not also serious about the maintenance of law and order. So the uptick in crime and violence will continue unabated, right? So that is what is happening right now in the island of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Now, back to human trafficking. one of the things that we have to understand as our society has become immoral, and perhaps I should say amoral, even though I don't know what, when people say that they're amoral, I mean, something that is a word, it's quite bizarre. It's either we are moral or we are immoral, right? It's either we are moral or we are immoral. And as far as I'm concerned, Jamaica is largely an immoral society. And I think that we have been turning a blind eye on that immorality, on the high levels of immorality that we witness on that island, right? Remember now that Port Royal, one of the reasons for which many people have suggested that it went underground because it was deemed to be the what? The wickedest city in the Western Hemisphere. And sometimes I really wonder if Jamaica is reliving that history, right? Reliving the history of Port Royal, and we have to be careful of God's judgment coming up on that island because we're not special than the people who went onto the sea, right? These buccaneers, right? All of these people that went underneath the ocean because of their wickedness. And we have to be careful with the level of criminality that we're witnessing in Jamaica. We're killing right, left, and center, and we think that that is normal. And we think that we're going to have economic prosperity, killing off our citizens, at least 1,000, more than 1,000, 1,400 per annum. When it's 1,000, it's almost like it's celebrated when we have 1,000 people killed every year. Wow, we have a great reduction in crime and violence, and people begin to celebrate. And it's business as usual. 1,000 people killed in a country of, approximately 3 million people per annum. And that to us is normal. Only when it gets to 1,700 and 1,800 do we begin to hear some spatterings of, complaints among citizens. But when it gets to 1,200 and 1,000, wow, we begin to celebrate because that to us is normal. And that is still abnormal for a population of just about 3 million people. It's abnormal, but we think that, yeah, I don't know that, right? That's nothing. That's nothing because we don't care. Now, let me say something to people who are commenting that I am JLP or PNP. I am neither of the party because they're politicians. You have to understand that these are politicians, and our politicians are selected and then they are elected, right? They are selected before they are elected. And the people, the financial elites, are the ones who select them, right? And from Andrew Holdes was a young man, he was recognized by Mr. Sierra and obviously the financial elites who backed Mr. Sierra. And that's why Andrew Holdes is there. And many of the others do. That's how these people come to be, right? So they select them and then they promote them to you and you elect them in your elections there and around the world. That's how democracy functions in this world, if you did not know, right? So many of these people who come in as prime ministers or presidents have to do the biddings of their financial backers, right? Their financial donors. They come first, then you. You are at the bottom of the ladder, and that's what you have to understand. They're not there to really uplift you and to improve the lives of the ordinary citizens or the masses. Yes, some of the crumbs you'll get that falls from the master's table. And our current colonial masters are really our politicians, right? Yes, I have told you that the United States is Jamaica's current colonial master because that is the foreign power that is in control. Remember now that we're not living in the Cold War. Jamaicans, you need to understand that we're not living in the, well, I should say the former Cold War that ended in 1989, right? That we're no longer living in that era. And I think that Jamaicans continue to view PNP and JLP from that perspective. right? From that standpoint, you continue to view your politicians and the parties, the political parties there from that era, and that era has long ended. And after that era ended, let me educate you, the United States became the preeminent power of the world. At least during the Cold War, we had two preeminent powers, the Soviet Union and the United States of America. And both were vying at the time for preeminency, right? And we know the history that the United States won that battle. And they became, at least from the 1990s, the preeminent power of the world. Since that time, from the 1990s, the United States, as I have suggested in many of my videos, have been on a quest for full spectrum dominance, meaning that she does not want anyone to challenge her preeminency, right? To challenge her supremacy in the world. She does not want anyone, including Britain or Germany or France. So you talk about white people and so forth. The United States does not think about light of that. It's thinking about maintaining its power, its global dominance in the world, right? And it does not want anyone to challenge it. Now, when you talk about empire, you're talking about economic, military, and political, and religious. So oftentimes we forget that that is so religious. And that's what we're seeing happening now, unfolding on the college campuses, with the United States suggesting that she is on the side of Israel and she's supporting Israel no matter what cost, right? She's supporting Israel because that is a religious flair. Because many evangelicals in the United States, some of whom are behind some of the policies that you see there, and they're pushing certain policies, think that the Antichrist is going to be, you know, domiciled in is Israel. And Israel is the people. Israel as a nation is still the God's chosen people, right? That is what a lot of evangelical churches preach. Protestant churches in America preach that, which is not biblical. It's not biblical because we know that the Jews rejected Christ. That was their last attempt, right? Their final opportunity to remain chosen people of God, and they rejected Christ by murdering him, right? They were at the forefront of Christ's assassination, right? Because without him, the Roman Empire would not even, they saw him, but they really did not consider him to be killed. Well, they could not do it without the church, right? Without the Jews reporting, because Christ was not preaching against the Roman Empire, right? He was there to preach truth. I mean, of course, some of the truth would hit about what the Roman Empire was also doing, but he was there to save the lives of the Jews and to let them know that he was the Messiah that they had been, preaching about for so many centuries, for so many years. And they rejected him. And now we have a situation in which we see where they have been sent back to their homeland, even though one of the judgments of God is that he would have scattered them around the world, across the world. That's one of the judgments that they're facing. The punishment for having rejected the mercies of God and the salvation that only God could give them. And they were not called to be a chosen people because God wanted to isolate them. God chose them that they would spread, that they would dispense, they would disperse the light of the gospel around the world. But they were so selfish that they wanted to have the gospel remain with them. And they were only to be the beneficiaries of the gospel. But Christ said no, right? That he came to seek and to save the lost, right? The lost, not only the lost house of Israel, but everyone. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, not only Jews, whosoever believeth shall have everlasting life, right? It's whosoever, be it European, or be they Africans, or be they Asians, doesn't have to do with any nationalities or ethnic group, right? Or any religious group. Yes, we have to adhere to the truth as it is taught in the Bible. However, God does not show any sort of favoritism. He is not a respecter of persons. So we have a situation in Jamaica where lawlessness reigns supreme, and we are actually reaping the consequences. Right? We're reaping the consequences of lawlessness. And what happened with that airline was as a result of lawlessness, and the fact that our leaders cannot be held to account because our citizens are not educated enough to hold them to account. Neither are we not only educated, but also we lack the power to hold them to account. We have allowed our politicians to wield the stick of power over our heads, and now I think that we have lost the battle, or we are almost losing the battle. We have almost lost the battle before we are sent back on the plantation. And you think that that is something that is unachievable or impossible, right? You think that going back on the plantation is something that you will not even think, because you think you're living an era of liberty and freedom. I have news for you. Okay, now let me open up with the two quotations from the Word of God, two statements, and we have here from Proverbs 19, verse 21. There are many plans in a man's heart, nevertheless, the Lord's counsel that will stand. All right, so only the Lord's counsel will stand. So man has lots of plans that he has, but only the Lord's counsel that will stand. Right? So God's counsel, God's plans will override any plans that man might devise. That is what we have to understand. So when you're looking towards man for solution of your problems, sometimes God allows them because you lack faith in him. He shows you what the results of man's, idiotic understanding of what life is about, right? He allows you to see the results because sometimes that's the only way you're going to learn. The only way you are going to learn is by seeing the results, the unfavorable results of man's wisdom. Because true wisdom comes from above. Make no bones about that. Now, listen to this too. And I want to say here categorically, I empathize with the Andrew-led administration. I am not a hypocrite. I understand that governments are essential, right? We cannot live in anarchy. And I've used Haiti as as an example of how of the importance rather of the importance of having a functioning government. Haiti should be an example, right? That should be an example to all the world. When we have governments that don't function, then you're going to have anarchy. And gangs are going to be let loose on the streets, right? And they have the freedom to do whatsoever they want to do. Right? And don't tell me about revolutionaries and these gangs are revolutionaries and all that nonsense, right? Because gangs are gangs. And I know that the media sometimes we have this, undertaking of dividing us and putting us into groups. So you have one group over there that believes that this is so, and another group. The world doesn't operate like that, right? Things are more complex than dividing us into left and right. And people are divided based on what they hear from the media, right? And they hold this narrative and it's almost a religious fervor, They believe that this is true and they will fight for it to death. Right? And that's what is happening here, there on the US college campuses with the whole pro-Israeli and pro-Palestine and anti-Israel narratives. It's nonsense, because why should the media talk about pro-Palestinians? It's pro the truth and pro-humanity. So pro the Palestinians is pro-humanity, anti-war. That's what they should be saying. Not that anybody's pro-Palestinians. We are pro-humanity. And when you see injustices, then you say that this is so, you call it out and say that if it's affecting those people, it's likely that one day it will affect me also. That should be the argument. It's not about being pro-Jamaicans or being pro-Israelis or being we are pro-humanity. And that is why slavery had to end, because lots of people of European heritage, some of them, I should say, recognize that if it continued, it could be a threat to their existence too. Right? Because we're all humans. And one act of injustice, if we see it, might not just remain there, it will be exported and it will be expanded, and perhaps one day will affect us. So what is happening in Haiti is not just, oh, it's happening in Haiti, so it's not going to come to Jamaica or it's not going to come to the United States. It is going to go there if it continues like that. It is going to go there. When the French Revolution happened in France in roundabout 1789, when that revolution started, that is how in 2 years the revolution went to Haiti. Do you know that? That is how the revolution, all the way from France. And at that time, we didn't have all these technologies and the transportations that we have now, that we can just be in France at, at the spur of the moment. The split second we can be in France, right? And information can, arrive to us from France, can get to us from France because of our emails and, and live streams and all of that stuff. That thing we didn't have live streams in 1789. But news got to Haiti, right? To Saint-Domingue, right? News got to Saint-Domingue. That's what Haiti was called at that time. And they heard about it, and they then they got the fervor, they got that sort of inclination that we are going to wage a war against our slave masters. Right? So if we see a situation in Haiti where the gangs, because of what is happening in Haiti, why didn't the gangs come up? According to what we're hearing, is that they understand that the elites in Haiti, the Haitian elites, along with the global elites, their foreign elites, their foreign counterparts, have not taken care of business, have been exploiting the people for years, and they are taking matters into their own hands. Right? That is a narrative in a nutshell that's coming out of Haiti. And to a large extent, that is true. But who controls the gangs? That is something that we have to ask. Who are the ones behind the gangs? That answer is not yet forthcoming. But we have to look behind the scenes. Who are behind the protest actions that we see, that we're witnessing on US college campuses? We've got to ask these questions. They might be protesting for a worthy cause, but if the same people are behind it, then guess what? We're not going to win. And that's why we have to be careful of these protests and these large-scale marches and so forth and so on. We've got to be careful about these things, because right now our world is so interconnected that we don't even know what is what. Okay? So I am pro-government. Let me say this categorically. I am not partisan. I have never voted in my entire life. Do you believe that? I have never voted for a political party or a political leader in my entire life. And perhaps it's a shame, that's a shame on me, but it's a shame on the political establishment. Because before, when I see a political leader coming on the scene, when I see that he has come on the scene and he's campaigning, I read about that character and I try to understand what the policies are. Many of you just go with the flow and you listen to what the news has to say to you and you do not do your research. Had you done diligent research, you'd find out that many of them are not what they say they are or who they say they are, right? They're not the persons that they tell you they are. They just simply are promoting that so that you will vote for them, right? And I'm not suggesting that you should not vote. You should cast your vote, right? As best as you see. If you think that you're doing the right thing, then you do your thing, right? So I'm not telling you not to vote. In fact, I commend you for voting if you do, right? But people also have the right not to vote, right? If they think that voting is not going to make a difference. But how do we have governments, right? We have to vote. So one of the things that is very interesting, and it's very ironic, because I'm saying, yeah, I think this guy is confusing himself. Oftentimes we get governance that we deserve. If we are a wicked people, God gives us wicked governments. Because at the end of the day, God is the one who appoints leaders. You know that? It's not you. No? God, at the end of the day, is the one who appoints leaders, not only in these Western societies, but around the world. Because he runs the show. He's the God of the universe. Right? So whether it's in India, or it is in Africa, or it is in Nigeria, it is in Ghana, it is in Jamaica, or it's in Trinidad, it's in Guyana, it is God who appoints government. Now let's listen to this passage of scripture, Romans 13, verses 1 and 2. It says here, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. Did you hear that? There is no authority except from God. Now, do you remember when Christ was actually, in the halls, when, in the hall of judgment, when just before he was crucified, and I think it was Pilate who was asking him, telling him, if you just answer us, because Christ would not answer the majority of the questions that they posed to him because he realized that they were taunting him, they were harassing him. So he kept quiet, right? He did not utter a word. He did not utter a word because he realized that they were actually deriding him. And when people are deriding you and you know the truth, sometimes, well, in most times, it is best to keep silent. Because if you argue with them, you actually lower your standard. So Christ did not argue with the judges and the governors, right, during his humiliation, just before his crucifixion. So while Pilate was asking him about his authority and if he's king of the Jews and all of that, right? Christ established the point, right? He cemented the point. He solidified that point that, yes, I understand that you have the authority to send me to trial, but you wouldn't have had that authority had God not given it to you. Christ told him that the position that you hold as lawyer or judge, that position God gave to you. Even the position as a pharmacist or a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher or a nurse, it's God who appointed you to that position. And we need to understand that. That's why everything we do, we must ensure that we do it to the what? To the best of our abilities, as the Bible says, do it with thy might. Everything that thy hand finds to do it with thy might. All right? Because it is God who appoints. So don't think that I am anti, because if I'm anti-Andrew Holness, or I'm anti-Mark Golding, or I'm anti, what's his name, Biden or Trump, then you are anti-God. You know that? Because God appoints these leaders, whether you like them or not. And as I said to you, God is wiser than you and I, so he knows what leaders should be in office for a particular purpose, to fulfill his own purposes for the world, right? Not for you, because we're selfish people. We only want presidents and prime ministers to satisfy our demands. But what if those demands are not helping us to grow and to have a better understanding of what God's plans are for our lives, then God is not going to give that particular prime minister or president. So I'm not anti Andrew Holness's government, right? So let's be clear on that. And neither if Mr. Golding, that's Mr. Mark Golding, should become the next Prime Minister of Jamaica. I would not be, I would continue to speak out against injustices, right? Because that is what we should do. And I'm very, very much disturbed that Patrick Allen, that's the Governor General of Jamaica, who should know better. I know that he's not, his position is a religious position, but he should be able to address some of the intractable problems that bedevil Jamaica. But he's doing nothing. He's just there, and he's just there presiding over ceremonies and behaving like he's important. And he doesn't understand that what the position that God has appointed him to, which he also wanted, and God gave it to him, requires that he step up and do what, and be a mouthpiece for God, right? Patrick Allen, you have to step up. You have to elevate that standard. You have to speak truth to power, though the heavens fall. But you're not doing that. You're not doing that from the perch, from the high perch that God has given to you. You're not doing that, sir, and you need to step up, or the blood of many Jamaicans will be on your hands. I hope you understand that, because that's a very important point that Patrick Allen and his, maybe I should say, well, his wife is not, but I'm sure she influences him. So we have, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. Right? We're not living in theocracy. But when you look at it in the broad perspective, right? When you analyze it, you see that, yes, we are living in a theocracy. Because at the end of the day, God is the one who appoints. So even though the people living in a far-flung place that perhaps have never even heard about God, right? It is still God who appoints. Because God is the ruler, is the sovereign ruler of the universe. That sometimes he allows men to do their evil bidding. Because remember now that we have two forces in this world, force of good and a force of evil. God is the embodiment of good, right? And righteousness, while the devil, what we call the adversary, Satan, the devil, is the embodiment, the living embodiment of evil or what is bad in the world. So sometimes, because people are so stubborn, God allows, because we're living in a democracy, in terms of God allows us to choose what we need to choose, like in the Garden of Eden, right? Eve chose to what? To disobey God's word, right? And Adam as well. God gave them that freedom, right? But afterwards, guess who? Even though the devil is here, and God allows him for a certain time, because the devil will be destroyed eventually, God is allowing us to choose whether we want to be on the side of good or we want to be on the side of evil, which will eventually meet its destruction. But God is not going to allow any being in the universe to be sovereign ruler of any planet that he has created, right? He's just giving Satan his time because he deceived Eve, and who led her husband into sin. He's just bidding us. He's just waiting until he's going to destroy sin forever and all evil behavior and activities on this world, in this world. Now, so I must say that, I think I've been clear. I don't think I need to really belabor my point, right, that I am not anti-Andrew Holness and his government, because if I do that, I will be against God, because God is the one who appointed Andrew Holness and his team. However, we still can chide them, right, and let them know that what they're doing is wrong, right? We should have that responsibility. The responsibility is ours to say when God, rests up on our conscience, when God rests something up on our conscience, to, declare his word, and also to, begin to, correct and to repair the breach. Then we have to do what God imbibes us to do, right? We've got to do it. We can't just walk around thinking that everything is going to be all right. And I would like to be in my bed sleeping right now. So what time is it? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd like to be sleeping and, and don't have to address some of these issues. But these things weigh upon your heart, and you've got to do it. You've got to do it, because if I should be in my bed, if I should be lying in my bed, I would still sleep, because I understand that God has rested these things on my heart, and I have to speak. Right? There's no rest, physical, mental, or emotional rest, until I speak what he has laid upon my heart to speak. Now, let's look at the whole matter of trafficking in Jamaica, right? And let's open up with an article from the Gleaner. Wow, I hope that think it's gone. Yeah, what is happening here? When I come on the Gleaner, my articles go. My articles go. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. Let me see if I could try to open it again. Where is it now? We have, yeah, I think that this is one. Yeah, the Gleaner is not allowing me to read its articles. So we might have to suffer with what we have, right? I'm sorry that I'm not able, but articles have been written about trafficking, the trafficking of Indians, even in the in Jamaica Gleaner. I'm not sure if I could read it on my phone. Yeah, let me see if I could read it on my phone. Give me a second, guys, and let me see if I could read it on my phone, because the computer is not allowing me to read articles from the Gleaner, at least when I'm actually streaming. Some crazy things happens when you're actually streaming. Where? Um, where is it? I think that I am not seeing this article that I had from the Gleaner. All right. So we have here, no, this is not the Gleaner. This is not the Gleaner. If we can't find it, I'm going to have to move on, because I don't want to hold you on and I'm wasting time. Yeah, this is weird that I can't find it. Weird. Okay, so let's move away from the Gleaner. I saw an article from 2007 and I wanted to bring that to you. Yes, something went. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sorry about that, but we were disconnected. Again, that's how it goes. Right, that's how it goes. Things happen while you're streaming. Okay, so let's go on to something else, and let me show you an article so we can move on. I think that I'm wasting a lot of time here. Um, this is coming from the Hindustan Times, and it suggests here that, where's the title? 4 Indian nationals arrested last week by Jamaican police on charges of human trafficking have pleaded guilty for possessing fictitious South African passports. And I wanted to look at this was on February 16, 2007, right? February 16th, 2007. So that has been happening since 2007, right? And perhaps before, as I've suggested. The men are also scheduled to be sentenced on bribery charges because they offered police $1,500 to release them when they were arrested. Police believe that with the arrest of the four men, they have broken a major human trafficking ring, a major human trafficking ring in the country. So it's not just a minor human trafficking, right? The human trafficking is happening in Jamaica, is alive and well, and we have to be aware of these things, according to Radio Jamaica. So this is not coming from any conspiratorial radio station. Radio Jamaica is quite a very mainstream radio station, right? So you can't say that, wow, Andrew went and he took it from something from somewhere that is conspiratorial, as you often perhaps like to say, because you don't like to do your own research. Last week, the Jamaican Immigration Department raided an apartment in St. Andrew, north of capital of Kingston, and arrested the men and seized several South African passports. Later, checks with the South African High Commission revealed that the passports were fictitious, right? So this is what is coming out of Jamaica on February 16, 2007. That was when the article was written, that there was a major human trafficking ring in Jamaica coming out of India, right? And I told you yesterday that I heard a Jamaican Chinese who spoke about speaking to Chinese workers who have recently immigrated from China to Jamaica, who are working for their Chinese employers, throughout the island. But she was actually notorious, and some of the workers were telling her that they were trafficked. And I've been reading online to people, Jamaicans, who are speaking randomly to other Chinese workers, employees, who are also saying that they are being trafficked and that, they can't leave. They are not free until they finish whatever labor contract or whatever agreement they had on the labor contract. So these are things we have to be aware of, that human trafficking is something that is real. I think sometimes Jamaicans pretend as if, we are this righteous nation and, and these things are not real, right? We tend to be living in a delusional world and have a delusional understanding of what Jamaica is, because Jamaica is really a wicked country, right? Because if you have an average of 1,500 people being murdered every year, you just have to speak the truth, that it is a wicked country. And having understood that, then we probably can decide now that we need to fix it, right? And ask God to forgive us and forsake our evil ways. Why not do that? But we can't think that we are going to progress and we're going to get kind and wonderful leaders if we continue to be that evil. And let me say that our leaders too, unfortunately, are reflective of us, of who we are, because they come from us, they emanate from the populace, right? So Andrew Holness came from the lower class, right? He was not a part of the elites. So, and look at what his administration is doing and the level of corruption that is so palpable and evident in his administration. Look at it. So it should be the reality that he's not coming from the Mark Golding sort of class. He wasn't born into wealth and privilege. So we can say that Mark Golding is accustomed to that, and that is what rich people do. Andrew Holness did not come from that class. Okay. Now let's look at another article, because we need to look at this human trafficking, and this is coming from the U.S. Department of State. Right, so the U.S. State Department, let me share my screen with you, and this is an article as regards trafficking, human trafficking in Jamaica, right? The country of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, right? The country that we like to say is wonderful, and Jamaica sweet enough. Jamaica sweet, can done. Right, I understand you, but you have to understand that there are lots of hideous parts to that beautiful island, right? Nobody is denying that it's a beautiful island, but it is also painted and daubed with a lot of criminality and wickedness, and a lot of times in high places. Now we have 2023, so this is not like 2003. This is coming from the US State Department, and this was written 2023. You can go, these are the receipts, so you can go online and you see that, right? So it's state.gov reports, right? So you see it's right here. You can see it and you can do your own reading and your own research, right? Please do that, will you? Now, so we have here Jamaica Tier 2. The government of Jamaica does not fully meet the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking, but is making significant efforts to do so. The government demonstrated overall increasing efforts compared with the previous reporting period, considering the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on its anti-trafficking capacity. Therefore, Jamaica remained on Tier 2. These efforts included investigating, prosecuting, and convicting more traffickers, implementing a screening tool and national referral mechanism for child victims, expanding training for criminal justice officials and victim service providers, and opening 3 child-friendly spaces for interviewing and providing immediate assistance to child victims. However, the government did not meet the minimum. This is very important. The government did not meet the minimum standards in several key areas, right? So Jamaica has not met the minimum requirements, right? In terms of averting, putting a dent on human trafficking, particularly the trafficking of children, right? The trafficking of children. So we're not, living in a beautiful country. We're not living in paradise, as many Jamaicans think they are, and think Jamaica sweet and Jamaica nice, right? A lot of hideous occurrences and events are happening under your very noses, right? So it's time for us to really become more conscious of what is really happening in Jamaica. And a lot of times when things happen, I told you that you need to learn to make the connections, but because you have not been reading enough, you are not able to make the connections. So when things like that happen with the unauthorized chartered flight, you just think that that's a mystery and how did that happen? And I do not like, again, the hypocrisy of Jamaicans who are, for the right reason, trying to find out what is happening, and they're making a lot of screaming, they're screaming and making a lot of noises in the media. But what happened? Why are you not making a lot of noise when you have 1,500 people murdered per annum? Hmm? Why are you silent? Why are you not online, screaming, shouting, trying to get your government's attention that the murders per annum are untenable, and we cannot continue like that if we want to be a civilized society, right? You're not making a lot of noise. You don't care, right? When you care, when you see some, how many? 253 or 218 unauthorized Indians landing in Jamaica, right? You're making a lot of noise about that, and rightly so. But you should also make a lot of noise about the level of corruption and the level of criminality, the high level, the untenable level of criminality that we see in Jamaica. I think that you should, but Jamaicans, again, are hypocritical. Now, let's look at the child labor and forced labor reports. And this is coming from the Bureau of International Labor Affairs. Let me share my screen and show you that to see what is happening as far as Jamaica is concerned. Right? Can't talk about everything, but I'm just sensitizing you to what your country is all about. So we have here the child labor and forced labor reports, and it's coming from the Bureau of International Labor Affairs, right? In 2002, so that's just 2 years ago, Jamaica made moderate advancement in efforts to eliminate the worst forms of child labor. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security increased the number of labor inspections from 1679, that's 1,679 in 2021 to 2,319 in 2022. It also drafted a new policy to reduce child labor through 2027 that awaits cabinet approval. In addition, the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking Persons signed a cooperation agreement with the government departments and NGOs, which I tried, NGOs, red flags, to collect and report national human trafficking data. However, they always, right, when they say what they've done, however, children in Jamaica are subjected to the worst forms of child labor, including in commercial sexual exploitation, sometimes as a result of human trafficking and use in illicit activities. Children also perform dangerous risks in agriculture and street work. Jamaica's laws do not provide, like what they say, Jamaica's laws, because we are a lawless society. Jamaica's laws do not provide higher penalties for using, procuring, or offering children for the production and distribution of drugs than penalties imposed for these same crimes when the victims are adults. That is sad. That is sad. And sometimes I really wonder, and well, I've said it, I shouldn't say I wonder because I've said it on numerous occasions, so I have to defend what I say, that I think we are following the plantation model. I think Jamaica still lives, under that plantation model, right? Where children are just not important, right? They're just for working and ensuring that, the job gets done, right? Wow. Moreover, the law providing for free basic education does not meet international standards because free education is only guaranteed for Jamaican citizens. So I'm not sure what they mean by that, if they think that children who are foreigners are also trafficked. Yeah, well, I would think so because they might be trafficked to Jamaica. So if any foreign children, or let's just say children coming from Haiti, are caught on the streets and they're performing, they're engaged in illicit activities, it means therefore that the government will not come to their defense. Well, according to our local laws. I am not sure if that is what it means. But this is where we are as a society, right? This is where we are heading. This is where we are heading, ladies and gentlemen, right? This is nothing to laugh about, right? This is nothing to laugh about. We should all be serious, and we should be calling on our authorities to investigate, right? Human trafficking in Jamaica. And sadly enough, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I think I should try to find an article that stated that fact, right? That trafficking is a multi-billion, I think it's a $150 billion industry, right? I think that is what I learned from a source that I had read. Let us see what, I think, let me end with this article, because I think it really, I can't read everything. This is a lengthy article, but let us look at some of the facts contained therein. So let me see if I can share my screen with you so that you can participate, right, in what I am reading. Now, so we have here the IJM. I'm not sure what they are called, what the IJM stands for, but you can do your own research and find out what they're about, what the acronym stands for. So we have trafficking and slavery still exist today. Right? So it begins by saying slavery is illegal almost everywhere, but millions of men, women, and children are trapped in modern day slavery around the world. In India, entire families are enslaved in labor trafficking in brick kilns. Yeah, that's what they're called, rice mills and garment factories working up to 20 hours a day. My God, how can they work 20 hours per day? So this is really slavery, right? And I think even on the slavery, the transatlantic slavery, it was better, right? 20 hours a day. And we have 24 hours a day. Can you imagine? So 4 hours of sleep. In Romania, women are tricked into sex trafficking with false promises of a loving relationship or a good paying job. In the Philippines, children as young as 2 sexually abused live or live rather. So they are sexually abused, live for anyone in the world to watch through, right? So we have the online sexual encounters with 2-year-olds. I mean, that is sad, right? It's very sad. And they give a report of lots of different countries and what is happening in the, oh, this is where human trafficking generates about 150 billion a year, with 2/3 coming from commercial sexual exploitation, right? So this is a big industry, people. It's an industry. Human trafficking is an industry. And it's time for you to understand that. So when you're screaming and, oh, national security, and I want to be secured, you have to understand that's just like slavery. It is a business. And sad to say, a lot of our financial elites are involved in it. And our politicians too. Right? So that is what is happening, and we just have to live up to the facts. We have to confront the facts. We have to confront the reality. We can't just simply lay our heads, right, in the sand, looking as if, nothing is happening. And how could this be happening in this beautiful country? Is it that beautiful? Do you think that Jamaica is a beautiful country? Physically, it is, but even that physical beauty we're destroying by our evil ways. We're destroying also the physical beauty of Jamaica. I hope that you have gleaned something from my discussion today, and I look forward to seeing you in another video. Please remember to like and to share and to subscribe, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. All the best to you. Ciao.